That's impossible. Mitchell Crawford's voice cut through the silence of his penthouse office. The dying man across from him didn't flinch. Look at him, Mitchell. Just look at him and tell me it's impossible. Mitchell's eyes moved to the 9-year-old boy standing beside the stranger. Gray-green eyes, sharp jawline, the slight cleft in the chin. It was like staring at a photograph from his own childhood. "This is Wyatt," the sick man said, his voice hoarse with exhaustion and desperation. "And whether you want to believe it or not, he's your son." The boy spoke then, quiet but steady. "I don't want to be here either, mister, but my dad is dying and he says you're the only person who can help me. So are you going to send us away or are you going to listen?" Mitchell stared at a child who wore his face, held by a ghost from 15 years ago who'd destroyed his life once before. The rain hammered against the windows 47 floors up, and Mitchell Crawford, billionaire, tech mogul, man who had everything, realized he was about to discover he had nothing at all. What happened next would change 3 lives forever. Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome back to VickyTale. If you're new here, welcome to our family. I'm so grateful you found us. And to my incredible subscribers, my loyal family who comes back video after video, thank you. Your support, your comments, your shares, they mean everything. Drop a comment below and let me know where you're watching from. I love seeing our global family connect. And listen, if you've ever struggled with forgiveness, if you've ever had to make an impossible choice, if you've ever wondered if second chances are real, this story is for you. Hit that subscribe button right now because you don't want to miss what happens next. Let's dive in. The rain came down like accusations against the glass windows of Crawford Technologies, 47 floors above Chicago's streets. Inside his corner office, Mitchell Crawford stood with his back to the city he'd conquered, staring at quarterly reports that should have thrilled him but only left him feeling hollow. 38 years old, $3 billion in the bank, properties on 4 continents, a reputation that made competitors nervous and investors eager, and absolutely no one waiting for him when he went home. His assistant Helen's voice crackled through the intercom, pulling him from thoughts he'd rather not examine too closely. "Mr. Crawford, there's a situation at the front desk." Mitchell didn't even look up. "Handle it, Helen. That's what I pay you for." There was a pause, a hesitation. In the 5 years Helen had worked for him, she'd never hesitated. "Sir, security says it's personal. There's a man in the lobby. He's quite ill, and he has a child with him. A boy. He's insisting he needs to see you, and he won't leave until he does." Mitchell's jaw tightened. Another scam artist. Another person who thought showing up with a sob story would get them a check. In his position, you learn to spot the con artists from a mile away. "Tell security to escort him out," Mitchell said, his voice flat. "If he refuses, call the police." "Sir, the man said to tell you his name." "I don't care what his name. Trevor Ashford." The report slipped from Mitchell's fingers. Papers scattered across his mahogany desk like leaves in the wind. Trevor Ashford. A name he hadn't heard in 15 years. A name from a life he'd deliberately burned to the ground and rebuilt from the ashes. Trevor Ashford, who'd been his best friend, his business partner, his brother in everything but blood. Trevor Ashford, who'd vanished in the middle of the night 10 years ago with every penny from their business account, leaving Mitchell with nothing but debt and betrayal. "Sir?" Helen's voice was gentle. "Are you there?" Mitchell's throat felt tight. When he spoke, his voice came out rougher than he intended. "Send them up." 8 minutes felt like 8 hours. Mitchell stood frozen behind his desk, his mind racing through memories he'd locked away. Trevor at 28, full of energy and dreams. The two of them working 20-hour days to build their first software. Late nights fueled by terrible coffee and bigger ambitions. The partnership agreement they'd signed, promising to build an empire together. And then, The morning Mitchell had arrived at their office to find the bank account emptied. $600,000. Everything they had, gone. And Trevor with it. The office door opened. Helen stepped aside, and Mitchell saw her expression shift. Carefully neutral, but her eyes held something that looked like pity. Behind her came a man who barely resembled the Trevor Ashford from Mitchell's memories. 10 years ago, Trevor had been the kind of man who could work a construction site all day and still have energy to coach Little League at night. Solid, strong, vibrant. The man who shuffled into Mitchell's office now looked like he'd aged 30 years instead of 10. His skin had a grayish pallor that spoke of serious illness. His clothes, clean but worn, hung loose on a frame that had lost far too much weight far too quickly. He moved with the careful, pained steps of someone whose body was actively failing him. But his eyes, God, his eyes were the same. That fierce determination that illness couldn't dim, mixed now with something that looked like desperate hope. And holding Trevor's hand was a boy. The child couldn't have been more than 9 years old. His clothes were clean but second-hand. You could tell from the way the jeans had been hemmed at the bottom, the way the jacket was just slightly too big. His sneakers had been repaired with duct tape. His dark hair needed cutting, but none of that mattered. Because the moment Mitchell looked at the boy's face, the entire world tilted sideways. It was like someone had pulled out his childhood photos and brought them to life. The same sharp jawline he saw in his mirror every morning. The same distinctive gray-green eyes, not quite gray, not quite green. That unusual color his mother used to call storm eyes. The same slight cleft in the chin. Even the way the boy stood, shoulders squared despite obvious nervousness, was identical to Mitchell's own defensive posture in every family photo from his youth. "Hello, Mitchell?" Trevor's voice was hoarse, strained. Each word seemed to cost him effort. "I'm sorry to come here like this. I know it's been a long time." Mitchell couldn't find words. His brain had short-circuited. His eyes kept moving between Trevor and the boy, making calculations that seemed impossible. "This is Wyatt," Trevor continued. He gently pushed the boy forward. "Wyatt, this is Mitchell Crawford. He's..." Trevor's voice cracked. He swallowed hard and tried again. "He's your father." The silence that followed was so complete that Mitchell could hear everything. The rain against the windows, his own heartbeat thundering in his ears, the small, sharp intake of breath from Helen before she quietly excused herself and closed the door. "That's impossible," Mitchell finally said. But even as the words left his mouth, he was staring at a child who was undeniably, impossibly, unmistakably his own reflection at 9 years old. Trevor swayed slightly. The boy, Wyatt, immediately steadied him with a practiced ease that suggested this wasn't the first time. His small hand gripped Trevor's elbow, supporting him. "Dad, you should sit down," Wyatt said softly. "Dad." The word hit Mitchell like a physical blow. Trevor lowered himself carefully into one of the leather chairs facing Mitchell's desk. Wyatt stood beside him, one small hand on Trevor's shoulder. Protective, watchful, far too mature for 9 years old. "I know you have questions," Trevor began. His breathing was labored. "I know this is the last thing you expected, but I need you to listen. I don't have much time." Mitchell moved around his desk but didn't sit. He leaned against it, arms crossed, every line of his body defensive. Closed off. "You don't have much time?" Mitchell's voice was cold. "Trevor, you disappeared 10 years ago. You vanished in the middle of the night with every penny from our business account. You destroyed my trust. You destroyed our partnership. You destroyed..." He stopped, glancing at the boy. Those gray-green eyes were watching him steadily, assessing. "You destroyed everything," Mitchell finished. "And now you show up saying you don't have much time?" "I'm dying," Trevor said simply. No drama, just fact. Pancreatic cancer, stage 4. The doctors give me maybe 3 months, probably less. Wyatt's hand tightened on Trevor's shoulder, but the boy's face remained stoic. He'd heard this before. He'd already processed what Mitchell was just learning. Mitchell felt something twist in his chest, but he forced his voice to stay cold. Controlled. I'm sorry to hear that. He didn't sound sorry. But that doesn't explain why you're here, and it doesn't explain why you're claiming this child is mine. Because he is yours, Trevor said. And I need you to understand how that's possible, even though I know it sounds insane. Mitchell waited. His silence demanded explanation. Trevor took a shaky breath. Do you remember Natalie? Natalie Brennan? The name pulled Mitchell back through time. Natalie. Bright, funny Natalie with the camera always around her neck. She'd worked at the coffee shop near their first office, the one that stayed open until midnight because they knew startups needed caffeine at all hours. She'd had dreams of becoming a professional photographer. Big dreams, just like Mitchell and Trevor had. Mitchell had dated her, briefly, casually, right before everything with Trevor had exploded. I remember her, Mitchell said carefully. After you and I had our falling out, Trevor continued. After I left, I ran into Natalie. Pure chance. I was in a hospital in Portland, and she was there doing a photography project. He paused, gathering strength. She was 6 months pregnant, Mitchell. She told me the father had been someone she'd briefly dated. Someone who'd gone on to bigger things and wouldn't want to be bothered with a baby. She didn't name you specifically, but I figured it out. The timeline matched. She mentioned the coffee shop. It wasn't hard to put together. Mitchell's mind reeled. If she was pregnant with my child, why didn't she tell me? Because you just lost everything when I took that money, Trevor said, and for the first time, real pain crossed his face. Shame. You were broke, angry, talking about rebuilding from nothing. She saw the news articles about what happened to you. She didn't want to be another burden. She was proud, Mitchell. She thought she could handle it alone. This doesn't explain. I fell in love with her, Trevor interrupted. I know you won't believe that. Not after what I did to you. But I met her at her lowest point, and somehow we found something real, something good. Trevor's eyes grew distant, lost in memory. She knew about my past, about what I'd done to you. She knew I was running from my mistakes, from people I owed money to, from the wreckage of my life. But she gave me a chance anyway. She said everyone deserves a chance to be better than their worst mistake. He smiled sadly. We moved to Portland together. I got work in construction. Natalie had the baby, had Wyatt, and we became a family. I raised him as my own. I loved him as my own. For 9 years, Mitchell, we were happy. Then what happened? Mitchell asked, though part of him didn't want to know. Wyatt spoke then, his young voice clear and steady. Clinical. Natalie died. Car accident last year. A truck ran a red light at an intersection. She died on impact. The way he said it, so matter-of-fact, so emotionless, told Mitchell everything. This boy had been forced to repeat this story to doctors, social workers, insurance agents, school administrators. He'd said it so many times that the words had lost their power to hurt him. Or maybe he'd just learned to bury the hurt so deep that it couldn't reach the surface anymore. I'm sorry, Mitchell said, and this time he meant it. Whatever anger he felt toward Trevor, this child had done nothing wrong. That must have been incredibly hard. Wyatt didn't respond, just kept his hand on Trevor's shoulder. After Natalie died, Trevor continued, I tried to keep things together, but I was already sick by then. Didn't know it was cancer, but I knew something was wrong. I lost my job, couldn't keep up with the physical demands, lost our apartment. We ended up in shelters, then worse. His voice dropped. I've been doing everything I can to keep Wyatt safe, but I'm running out of time and options. So you came here for money, Mitchell said flatly. No. Trevor's response was sharp, angry even. He tried to lean forward but winced with pain. Wyatt steadied him again. No, Trevor repeated. I came here because Wyatt needs a father, and despite everything between us, despite what I did to you 15 years ago, I know you're a good man. You were a good man then, even when I betrayed you. I'm hoping you still are. Mitchell looked at Wyatt again, really looked at him. The boy met his gaze without flinching. Those storm-colored eyes assessed him with an intelligence that seemed far too old for 9 years. There was a wariness there, a careful calculation. This was a child who'd learned not to trust too quickly. How do I know he's really mine? Mitchell asked. You could have found any kid who looks vaguely like me and… I brought this. Trevor pulled a manila envelope from inside his worn jacket. His hand shook with the effort. The envelope was crumpled, stained, clearly carried around for a while. Wyatt took it from Trevor's trembling hand and walked it over to Mitchell. Up close, the resemblance was even more striking. It wasn't just the individual features, it was the way the boy moved, economical, purposeful. The set of his shoulders, the direct way he made eye contact. The slight tilt of his head when he was thinking. Mitchell had seen all of those mannerisms in videos of himself as a child. Mitchell opened the envelope. Inside were documents, organized with care. Wyatt's birth certificate. Mother, Natalie Ann Brennan. Father, unknown. Medical records showing a healthy child, up to date on vaccinations, no major illnesses. School records, a bright student, straight A's in every subject. But 3 different schools in the past year. Each transcript from a different city as Trevor and Wyatt had been forced to keep moving. Photographs of Natalie. And yes, Mitchell remembered her now. That smile that could light up a room. The way she'd always had a camera with her, capturing moments other people missed. He remembered thinking she saw the world differently than most people. And at the bottom of the envelope, a sealed medical vial and paperwork from a DNA testing laboratory. Mitchell pulled out the documents. It was a DNA sample collection kit. Wyatt's genetic material, already processed and ready for comparison testing. The lab letterhead was legitimate. Everything was prepared and waiting for Mitchell's sample. I had Wyatt's DNA tested and stored at GeneTech Labs downtown, Trevor said quietly. Used the last money I had, but I need your sample to complete the paternity test. I couldn't come here and make this claim without offering you scientific proof. He paused, breathing hard. I'm not asking you to just take my word for it. I'm asking you to take the test. Let the science speak for itself. If I'm wrong, if somehow I've made a terrible mistake, then you'll know. But if I'm right, Trevor's voice trailed off. The implications hung in the air. Mitchell set the papers down carefully on his desk. His hands weren't entirely steady. He looked at the sealed vial containing Wyatt's DNA sample, then at the laboratory paperwork requesting his own sample for comparison. The science would tell the truth, one way or another. You stole from me, Trevor. His voice was low, controlled, but the anger underneath was molten. You destroyed our partnership. You took everything we'd built together and vanished. That money was supposed to launch us both. Instead, I spent 5 years digging out of debt. 5 years working 3 jobs to pay back investors, to restore my reputation, to build something from nothing. He pointed at Wyatt without looking at the boy. While you were raising my son. I know, Trevor said. His voice cracked. And I can't undo any of that. I can't give you back those years. I can't return what I stole. I spent it long ago on medical bills for Natalie's pregnancy complications, on trying to build a life for our family. I can't even properly apologize because words aren't enough for what I did. He paused, breathing hard. Each breath seemed to cost him. But Mitchell, I can give you the truth. I can tell you that every single day I lived with the guilt of what I did to you. Every single day. I can tell you that I tried to be the father Wyatt deserved, even though I wasn't his biological dad. And I can tell you that I'm terrified, absolutely terrified, of what will happen to him when I'm gone. Wyatt's stoic expression finally cracked, just slightly. His jaw tightened. He looked away, blinking hard. "There's no other family?" Mitchell asked. Trevor shook his head. Natalie was an only child. Her parents died when she was in college. Car accident, actually. She used to say tragedy ran in her family. He swallowed hard. My family disowned me years ago. The gambling debts, the bad decisions, they'd had enough. When I disappeared with your money, I burned every bridge I had left. There's no one else, Mitchell. When I die, Wyatt goes into the foster system. And what's wrong with foster care? Mitchell asked. He wasn't being cruel. He genuinely wanted to know. There are good families. I've seen what that system does to kids, Trevor interrupted. Especially kids his age. They bounce from home to home. Some families are good, yes, but many aren't. And even the good ones rarely keep kids like Wyatt. 9 years old, already traumatized, too smart for his own good. He'll bounce around until he ages out at 18, never having a real home, never having stability. Trevor's voice grew desperate. He'll lose what little security he has left. He'll stop trusting people. He'll stop believing anyone will choose to keep him. I've watched it happen to other kids in the shelters we stayed at. I won't let that happen to Wyatt. Dad, stop, Wyatt said quietly. You don't have to beg. But Trevor kept going. He leaned forward despite the obvious pain it caused, his eyes locked on Mitchell's. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm not asking you to forget what I did. I'm asking you to be the man I know you are underneath all this success and money. I'm asking you to look at that boy and see yourself, see your own second chance. Mitchell was quiet for a long moment. Rain continued its relentless drumming against the windows. Somewhere in the building, a phone rang. Someone laughed in a distant hallway. Life continued on, oblivious to the fact that Mitchell Crawford's entire understanding of his own story was being rewritten. He looked at Wyatt. The boy was watching him with those familiar eyes. Not pleading, not crying, just waiting. There was a dignity in that 9-year-old face that reminded Mitchell of something, of someone, of himself at that age, after his own father had died, when he'd had to grow up too fast, when he'd learned that life was hard and unfair, and nobody was coming to save you. Why did you take the money? Mitchell finally asked. 10 years, Trevor. 10 years, and I never understood why. We were friends. We were partners. We were building something together. Why? Trevor's face crumpled. For the first time since walking in, he looked like he might cry. Because I was drowning in gambling debts, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Because I was stupid and ashamed and desperate. Because when you're in that deep, you stop thinking clearly. You just panic. He wiped his eyes roughly. I told myself I'd pay you back. I told myself it was just a loan, that I'd make it right once I'd cleared my debts. I was going to replace the money before you even noticed it was gone. But you didn't, Mitchell said. But I didn't, Trevor agreed. Because the people I owed didn't just want money. They wanted a lesson taught. They beat me badly enough that I ended up in the hospital. Broken ribs, punctured lung, fractured skull. That's where I met Natalie. He smiled sadly at the memory. She was doing a photography project there. Moments of hope in dark places, she called it. She was capturing images of people at their worst, trying to find beauty in suffering. She photographed me in that hospital bed, broken and ashamed and drowning in the consequences of my choices. Trevor's voice grew soft. And somehow she saw something worth saving. We started talking. I told her everything, about the gambling, about stealing from you, about the people who wanted me dead. She said, "The worst thing that ever happened to you might be the thing that saves your life, if you let it." "So you ran," Mitchell said. "You came to Portland and hid." "I came to Portland because I had to disappear from the people I owed," Trevor corrected. "But Mitchell, I stayed because of Natalie and Wyatt. They saved my life. They gave me a reason to be better than I was." He looked at Wyatt, and the love in his eyes was undeniable, real, deep. "I know it was cowardly. I know I left you to face everything alone. The debt, the angry investors, the destroyed reputation. I know I took the easy way out while you suffered for my mistakes. But this boy right here, raising him has been the only good thing I've ever done. The only thing I got right." Trevor turned back to Mitchell. "And now I'm dying, and the only good thing I've ever done needs more than what I can give him. He needs stability. He needs opportunity. He needs someone who won't disappear when things get hard. He needs a father," Mitchell said quietly. Trevor nodded. "He needs you." We've reached the halfway point of this incredible story. What happens next will change everything. Will Mitchell choose to forgive the man who destroyed his life? Will he accept responsibility for a son he never knew existed? Can a broken past lead to a redeemed future? Make sure you're ready for part 2 by hitting that subscribe button right now. Trust me, you don't want to miss what happens next. And drop a comment below. Have you ever had to make an impossible choice between anger and forgiveness? Between your past and your future? I want to hear your story. See you in part 2.